Under IDEA, ADHD is defined as a condition of hyperactivity, impulsivity, inattention included in the other health impairments. The federal government defines ADHD as defined as one condition included under the other health impairments category. The New Jersey state claims the term special education means specially designed instruction at no cost to parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability, including instruction conducted in the classroom, in the home, in hospitals and institutions, and in other settings, and instruction in physical education. A law that helped out students with ADHD is Rowley v. Hendrick Hudson School District. Because of this law, students with ADHD can receive accommodations in order to be able to participate in the classroom environment. Smith said, "The case decided school districts must provide those services that permit a student with disabilities to benefit from instruction." In 1997, IDEA was reauthorized. This added ADHD under the other health impairments category, added assessments for functional behavior and behavioral intervention, and included transitions into the IEP. Students who have ADHD have a more challenging time in school than those who don't. They have a harder time concentrating and need to work harder to focus and get a task done. They also have a greater chance of failing school. Since they can't focus and they get distracted, they have a greater chance of receiving low grades and a greater risk of dropping out. Students who have ADHD miss certain information in school. If the student wasn't diagnosed early enough, they may have missed pieces of information by not paying attention or being in a general education classroom when they should not be there. Smith said, "To the extent that students with ADHD miss blocks of information and experience interruptions in the learning process, their access to general education curriculum is inconsistent." Lastly, they have a lack of motivation. Since school is more challenging for them, they need to put in extra time and work harder, but they don't have the motivation to do so. Because of rejection, people with ADHD often judge themselves as social failures. They are hard on themselves, and because they keep to themselves, it can come off as being antisocial. People with ADHD have a harder time making friends in school because of their personality. It is shown in the book ADHD and Me, What I Learned from Lighting Fires at the Dinner Table by Blake Taylor. He said, "Everyone wants to have friends, but making friends is hard for kids with ADHD. Throughout the first 9 or so years of school, I was so insecure about my ADHD that I had a hard time making friends. I was afraid that my ADHD behaviors would get in the way, and they did." Not feeling like everyone else and isolating themselves is another characteristic of someone with ADHD. Blake isolated himself at the 6th grade dance because of fear of not fitting in. He was afraid he would be judged based off of his ADHD. Because they have a hard time fitting in, students with ADHD tend to get bullied. Since the bullies are aware of the mannerisms of these students, they know what to pick on them for, and it makes them an easy target. Lastly, when something goes wrong in a classroom, a lot of people would assume that it is a student whom acts out normally and causes ruckus. A lot of students with ADHD get blamed on even when they are not guilty. They may have to suffer the punishment for something they may not have done. A person who has ADHD is very empathetic. They are the first to notice if someone is upset or their feelings are hurt, and they will be the first to go over to comfort them. People with ADHD may have a hard time controlling what they are feeling. This could lead to them not knowing how to handle their emotions, and it could potentially be physical. A mixture of their hyperactivity and impulsiveness could lead to possibly taking out their anger or sadness in the wrong way. They may also get frustrated more easily than others. When doing schoolwork, if they can't get the correct answer after a couple of tries or they keep making a mistake, they can get very angry, impatient, and irritated. Hyperactivity is one of the commonly known symptoms of ADHD. If a student in the class is constantly getting up and walking around and they can't seem to sit still, it could be their hyperactivity kicking in. People with ADHD tend to be very talkative. No matter what pops into their brain, they will just speak and talk about it. This could cause them to interrupt others, because even though the other person is in the middle of a sentence, they are eager to say what they want to say. Although it is not common, a symptom of a person with ADHD may have problems with their balance. According to the article Sensory Processing Problems in Children with ADHD, Balance Performance and Ability for Equilibrium and Postural Control in Children with ADHD combined type are more impaired in comparison to typically developing children. A person with ADHD tends to be very disorganized. They have papers in the wrong folders or forget to get things signed. They could be reminded numerous times to do something, yet forget anyway. This could affect them as adults in everyday living because they can forget to do certain things, like go to an appointment or paying the bills. Students who have ADHD could remain in general education classroom, but they might need some accommodations. If their disability affects their performance, they could be placed into a special education class and learn the skills that they need to there. One strength is intelligence. It may take these students different methods of learning, but they are very intelligent. They also have a lot of energy in which they can use in multiple ways. They can put that energy into anything they wanted. Blake Taylor said, "You have an abundance of energy and the secret is to channel it into many, many pursuits: academics, community service, sports, social activities, and other interests." Because they are so passionate, they can focus on something they are interested in very well. One commonly known strength is creativity. With thinking outside the box, they are able to come up with great ideas and are very creative. People who have ADHD are very passionate and they put a lot of desire into what they love. People with ADHD look at situations from a different perspective and exhibit an ability to think outside the box. People with ADHD face some challenges as well. The three main symptoms of ADHD, inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, are big challenges for these students. They can't pay attention for long periods of time without getting distracted. They have a lot of energy which they don't always put into the right use, and they have these impulses that they can't control. This is challenging in the school setting as well as the social setting. Inattention is one of the most noticeable signs of ADHD. When it is noticed a student is constantly not paying attention or not finishing their work, it will be brought to the teacher's attention. People with ADHD get into trouble, but not always intentionally. They act without thinking about the consequences, and that is part of their impulsivity. Hyperactivity is also common and could potentially lead to the negative situations. People who have ADHD have so much energy and passion inside them that they will do what they are interested in. Blake Taylor said, "One counselor, George Lynn, describes ADHD kids as being like tigers in a zoo who may feel an enormous amount of pent-up energy but may be distressingly unable to focus or control it." Students with ADHD are also at higher risk of failing schools because they can get distracted and they can't finish their assignments. Also, while a teacher is teaching, they may zone out and think of other things instead of paying attention to their lesson. Their grades might not be as well, and they might fail. They also have a harder time in social settings. Making friends isn't as easy as it is for others because of their ADHD characteristics and mannerisms. Teachers should make accommodations for students who have ADHD. Students who have ADHD should be allowed to have a longer time to finish their assignments. Since they get distracted easily, they struggle trying to complete a task in the same amount of time as their peers. By allowing more time, they can complete the assignment to the fullest. Since these students tend to alienate themselves because of their low self-esteem, there are ways that teachers can go about trying to get the students to learn social behavior. Providing instruction on how to interact with others and behave in a more socially appropriate manner will help students and other classmates learn how to act in a social situation. It is also important to arrange the classroom and desks so the students with ADHD are not by areas which have excessive commotion. They get distracted easily, so by sitting them right next to the pencil sharpener where students get up and sharpen their pencils throughout the day, or next to the door where they can watch other classes go to gym is not beneficial for them. It will take their mind off of learning and it will be on the other students. A way to increase these students' academics is by providing instruction in small pieces as opposed to one big instruction. Since students with ADHD gets distracted after a certain amount of time, teachers should break up big tasks into smaller ones. This will give the students more mini goals that they could reach in a shorter amount of time, and it will help them complete their work. In order to help a student socially, by teaching them self-management, it will help them in more socially appropriate behaviors. One way is by teaching them to self-monitor themselves and keep a record of their own performance. By teaching the students to continuously ask themselves if they know what the teacher is talking about and what they are asking, it makes them responsible for their behavior. They will not think of other things. They will have to continuously ask themselves, what did the teacher ask for me to do? The IEP team is very important to be in contact with. Having all these people as resources is very beneficial. Each person is a master in a different field, from knowing about the disability to knowing about how their child acts at home. Everyone works together to come up with the best education possible. A resource teachers could use to serve this child is the parents. It is important to get all of the information on their child as possible. Collaboration with the parents could be both positive for the parents and the teacher. The teachers will collaborate with the parents, and they will have as much information to come up with the best way to help their child. The school nurse is also there to give the students their medication. If a student has ADHD and is taking medicine, they must go to the nurses to receive it there. The nurse will monitor the impact of the medication on the student's performance and maintenance of proper documentation. The school nurse is part of the IEP team, therefore they are aware of how the children behaves and what type of medication they would need. There is a book teachers could invest in called How to Reach and Teach Children with ADD and ADHD, Practical Techniques, Strategies, and Interventions by Sandra F. Reif. This book contains a lot of information, such as engaging students' attention and active participation, keeping students on task and productive, building partnerships with parents, and preventing behavioral problems in the classroom. It is important for teachers to be able to go back to a book if they need help with anything dealing with students who have ADHD. A review on the book said, for over a decade, Sandra Reif's How to Reach and Teach Children with ADD and ADHD has been the most definitive and user-friendly go-to guide for teachers and parents eager to help children with ADHD succeed in school, home, and life overall. Lastly, a website teachers could go on in order to get as much information on ADHD is ncld.org. It is the National Center for Learning Disabilities. There are many informational videos on ADHD, how it affects the students' learning, and how to parent children with ADHD. Having these available to watch will help teachers and parents both get any information that they didn't know or were unsure about. Hearing tips on how to teach students with ADHD will encourage the teacher to modify his or her classroom in order to make it easier for the student with ADHD. All of the stories that Blake Taylor told showed characteristics of people with ADHD. One is that they are very disorganized. Although Blake knew all of the material on his math test, he still wound up with a C. He went home and reviewed his test and realized that there were very silly mistakes, such as addition and subtraction. Meanwhile, he knew the full concepts. This was part of his disorganization. In addition, students with ADHD tend to get bullied. Blake got bullied by a kid in his school for his ADHD mannerisms. The kid would continuously pick on Blake until Blake finally got him in trouble. People with ADHD isolate themselves. After his parents told Blake to go to the 6th grade dance, Blake went and sat in the corner with a book. Although many of his friends came up and asked him to dance, he politely rejected and continued reading his book. Lastly, people with ADHD are very impulsive. One day, when Blake's sister was playing with fire at the dinner table, Blake decided to take it to the next level and get eyeglass cleaner and cause a huge fire in the kitchen.